Boom, according to that I am live. Welcome, this is Tokyo Tonight. Last minute setup, which means I think Dan H is the only person watching right now. Of course, it's 10:34 in Japan right now. We're at whatever time it is where you are. Feel free to join and say hello. 4 people now rocking in. Like I said, I just sent out the invite a minute ago, so might take a while for people to come in. It's been a crazy time for me lately, so I have actually not been tweeting much, and I don't have a lot of topics lined up. I've got the election, I've got the reopening of Japan, I've got what other topics do I have? There are fewer women, brief mention about the possible war in Taiwan thing that's happening at the moment, but that's really it. The head of the Democrats quitting. Not a lot of topics, so actually I would love to do what we've been doing the last few weeks and have comments and just talk about what you guys want. Hey, Yuan Johnson, good to have you in here. Atomic Tom, long time no see, good to have you back. We've got a Devoid, good to have you all in here. Yeah, what have people been watching lately? I must admit, I've been, one thing instead of following news, because there hasn't been all that much to follow. Great news, by the way, of course, is that the COVID situation in Tokyo is excellent. There's like 20 cases per day. And yes, Japan is testing less than in other places, but the positivity rate is like 0.5%, i.e., for have 200 tests are taken for every positive case. And WHO considers 5% or less to be sufficient, general, or an indication of sufficient testing. So yeah, hey, Carlos Diamante, another person, long time no see, good to see you. So from that perspective, the situation is actually good. A lot of prefectures actually have no recorded cases of COVID at the moment. Tokyo is doing relatively well. Osaka is still doing the worst, but even then, 39 cases a day is still doing pretty well. Hey, Shubhas, we've got our Panamanian representative here as well. Good to see you. Good morning, sir. Buenos dias. So yeah, the COVID situation right now is as good as it's probably going to get. Yes, the vaccination rates are high. Double vaccinated, I think, is now up to 73%. Single vaccinated is about 77%. The number of vaccinations per day are now dropping to like 400,000 per day, i.e. most of the people who want it seem to have got it. The government is going to start third shots from December. Looking at what's happening in the US, they're also probably likely to start giving shots to kids soon again, looking at what's happening in the US. But yeah, I think the combination, just the fact that, when I go out where I am anyway, I don't see anyone not wearing masks. I mean, you might see people lowering their mask to have a drink or to sometimes smoke, which I wish people wouldn't do. They're not allowed to do it in the area where I am, but they do it anyway. But everyone wears masks, so I think that's perhaps another reason that it's staying low. However, that said, of course, we had Halloween the other week, which a lot of young people went out and dressed up. We had that horrible crime incident where a person basically stabbed an old man and set fires on a KO line deliberately because he was seeking the death penalty by killing 2 people. However, he didn't kill any people. He just basically, and this person is why I can talk about that story. I don't like to talk about crime stories generally, but I can talk about that. But in addition to that, he was going into Tokyo because there were genuinely huge crowds, throngs of people. And I suppose that it also probably means generally we've found that when there have been big events and whatnot, there has been a bump up again, and we're all waiting for the 6th wave to start in Japan. As it's probably it's probably inevitable. It's probably going to start a week or 2 from now. But yeah, it will be interesting to see. Will the vaccinations and masks and everything make it lower, or is it just going to be as bad as the other one? So I guess we're about to find out. I got Cobras Tenshi coming in. DJ Sunny Side Up, yo, you made a firehouse beat. I'd love to hear it. Good stuff. I must admit, I was just listening to a great documentary. In fact, DJ Sunny Side Up might have shared it on Facebook. Somebody did. Anyway, it was a sort of a 30-minute documentary on YouTube about Rick Rubin, the producer who established Def Jam, but also managed Red Hot Chili Peppers, also managed, like a Slayer, managed a whole lot. I mean, I didn't know anything about him as a producer, actually. Just as a great documentary. I've been watching a lot of YouTube. I can probably recommend some of the videos I've been watching on it, actually. But and actually, in that regards, hat tip to welcome Sergeant Bilko. Sorry, I missed you there a moment. Hat tip to Dan H, because actually the channel that you recommended, I watched that video the other day. They've put up a few more good videos, and I've quite enjoyed them all. So that was a great recommendation. We've got 270 AJ. Good to see you. Yeah, we've got everybody in here. People, remember, do what One Johnson. By the way, you don't even have to put the @ mark actually for it to flash orange. Obviously, Just say my name. Say my name, and you get to say it'll flash up on the screen, and I will pay special attention. Like so, for example, Wan Joon-san watched Dune in Ikebukuro's IMAX recommended. Now, I've never read the Dune books. All I know is that they're enormous, and when I was a kid, all the parents read it, and I know that people talked about it as being like the novel, like better than Star Wars kind of thing, when Star Wars was really big when I was a kid. So there was all of this expectation when they made the movie Dune in the 1980s, and of course it was a flop. And just out of morbid curiosity, I watched it like about 6 months ago, and it really was a terrible, terrible movie. And I'm surprised that the director and everyone involved ever got to work again. But I'm hearing good things about the movie, so I must admit I was so put off by the last movie, and because I don't know the books, I do wonder if it's going to be worthwhile going and seeing. But you reckon it was good there, One Johnson? If it's recommended, I'll definitely take your recommendation. Dan H, there seems to be little to no news about Japan this week. That's pretty, even in Japan, that seems to be the case. So yeah, maybe I'll do that. Let's do that tonight. I'm gonna fire up the iPad. I don't have the camera set up to show you what I'm doing on the screen or to capture the screen, but screw it. Let's do that. In fact, you know what? If I use my teeny tiny iPhone here, I can probably, because this actually has a regular wire cable output, I can probably hook this up to actually share the screen and the sound at the same time. Now there's a thought. I might try that. Actually, I'm kind of tempted just to check now. So if I, now this is such an old one. iChaos. Is it on here? Oh, the letters are so small I can't type. Okay, it's not installed on this one. Still, yeah, that's actually not a bad idea, Dan. I think I might do that. See more people rocking in. Yeah, I think I want to do. I haven't made music for ages, actually. Cobra Senshi. Apparently, Japan is prepping people on how to drive on volcanic ash in the case of Mount Fuji erupting. Well, they're always doing various things. That is one of the stories I think I have on here. Now we can worry about other disasters. Now that COVID is going down, the scenario of Mount Fuji erupting actually for Tokyo is surprisingly apocalyptic. It's not like Tokyo, it's not going to be like Pompeii here. You know, it's not going to get buried. We're not going to have pyroclastic flows or lava or anything in Tokyo, although they will have all of that in Shizuoka. But what we are likely to get in Tokyo is 5 to 10 centimeters of ash. And that you might think, oh, that's just like having snow or something like that. But no, that actually, well, I'll talk about this in more detail. But yeah, no, that's actually enough to cause quite a lot of havoc. And that is going to be a huge challenge. I mean, driving is one of the things. So yeah, interesting. So yes, firehouse beat. I should make a firehouse beat. Let's make that the goal. Okay, I'm going to aim to get done by like 11:15 because there are literally like no stories. And we'll see. I mean, I never make it there, but I'll try my best. So yes, Atomic Tom, yeah, Aaron, squirrel time indeed. Stop squirrel time. Quentin Rankett, good to see you. No announcement on Twitter tonight. I did, didn't I? Wait. Oh, whoops! I didn't hit send on it. Damn it! Sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. That's why there was no one here. Oh. I slappensy myself. Sorry, thank you for that, Quint Rankett. I just sent out the very delayed. I thought I'd hit send on it, but it was all set to go. Mr. Cordy Chep, excellent to see you. Technical issues again. Yeah. Well, I hadn't sent it. Keep the windows closed. So, yeah. I'll tell you. I've been. I tweeted the other day. Disney Plus has recently incorporated Star in Japan. I didn't realize this, so. When I updated the app, I discovered I could watch Free Guy and Big Trouble in Little China. And last night I watched Ford versus Ferrari. So 3 days in a row, I've watched 3 pretty good movies. Free Guy, I like as a video game movie goes, was actually really good. I must admit, I really enjoyed it after I watched it, and I was kind of like, well, that was great. I'd watch that again. A few days later, I must admit, I can barely remember the plot to it. And it was a Ryan Reynolds movie, but it was enjoyable. Big Trouble in Little China, I remember enjoying as a kid, and I remember it also getting terrible reviews, but I also know it's become a bit of a cult thing, and there are lots of people that always drop quotes and sort of culture memes and so on about Big Trouble Little China. And I saw it was newly added to Disney, so I watched it yesterday. And I remember watching the first 15 minutes, and I was like, "Wow, was this movie actually this bad?" I mean, it was one of those things. It was almost, I get it. It was actually made to be deliberately bad. It was kind of imitating a local a B sort of Hong Kong kung fu movie, and it was the corny dialogue and plot and everything. I know it was on purpose, but it was actually yeah. I think the last time I watched it, I was a kid, so watching it yesterday. But the thing is that it's so much fun. Watching, oh god, Kurt Russell doing like a sort of a drunk John Wayne impersonation through the whole thing. Uh, just some of the quotes as well. It was awesome. I mean, like Kurt Russell and his saying to the other character, I gotta go get my truck back, and you lost a truck, I lost a whole woman. This person talking about the love of his life. She doesn't get any lines in the whole movie, and she's just sort of like the video game girl. But that was a great movie. And Ford versus Ferrari, I never would have actually expected it was what it was, but it was it was actually pretty good. So some good watches. I was very glad to see that. Yeah, we've got ice cream mochis for Mr. Cordy Chap. Well done. We got Tim the Asian Egg. Did I start yet? No, not really. I'm just jabbering at the moment. So you made it in plenty of time. I don't know what that means, Tim the Asian Ink, although I suppose we all do. Yeah. Quint Rankid, you've got it right there. Exactly. It becomes basically covering everything in cement. It kills power lines. It coats everything in cement, particularly if it gets wet. It actually would be kind of unprecedented for a city like Tokyo to experience a heavy ashfall, but that's what would happen and of course it would cause cave-ins of houses and so on. Most roofs wouldn't be able to sustain the weight of 10 centimeters of ash. If it's also combined with rain, it becomes heavy cement. It's kind of crazy. So anyway, we have lots of stories tonight, but I'm going to aim for let's say 11. I'll aim for 11:10, knowing that if I can get to 11:15, I will try to set up some music. Are there some interesting and underappreciated Japanese YouTubers I could recommend? You know what? I'm watching less Japanese YouTubers lately. I've kind of just gone into watching history and science sort of channels on YouTube, and I get quite a lot of enjoyment from that. I mean, there's PDR, who I've been recommending forever. I still subscribe to him. I also subscribe to a couple of Japanese channels that do like product reviews and stuff like that, like gadget reviews of stuff they bought off Amazon and stuff like that, which I just find useful personally for shopping and stuff like that. But I'm probably not the right person to ask for good current YouTube channels. I must admit, I've just kind of like, from my own capacity perspective, narrowed everything down to what I actually yeah. Oh, Tim the Asian Ink, Big Trouble Little China. Pretty sure that's the first movie. You remember what that for me? You know what? Yes, who can remember? I mean, their first movie where they saw those. I think it was actually a Gene Wilder, Richard Pryor movie. I think it was like Stir Crazy that I can remember. And they broadcast it on TV in New Zealand at like 7 o'clock, and there were like only 2 channels. So, it was either that or like a BBC, Coronation Street or something like that. So yeah, there was pretty much no choice. But yes, indeed. PDR again. Well, like I say, so I don't really have any new fresh recommendations for Japanese YouTube channels, I'm afraid. Like I said, I don't keep up as well anymore. But yeah, Atomic Tom likes technology connections on YouTube. I really enjoy this sort of space, and there's a lot of great sort of history content and a lot of great space content. And yeah, it's just endlessly interesting, good stuff. I find actually that looking at, you discover that a lot of channels that I like are sponsored by the same sponsors, and so clearly the sponsors are looking for channels of a certain theme, so for example, Squarespace sponsors a lot of channels that I like, and Brilliant sponsors a lot of channels that I like, and I almost wish that those sponsors would list up all the channels that they sponsor, because I find that quite a good way and quite to confirm what channels are good to watch personally. So anyway, let's get into it. Really isn't a lot of news to report tonight, but There's a comment in Nikkei that, yes, this election, there was almost no policy debate, and that is true. I talked about this last week. There was only 12 days. I mean, I talk about how terrible it is that in the US it took 1,200 days. In Japan, it took 12 days to have an election campaign. But yeah, I'd say the best attempt at actually having a detailed policy manifesto was the Democrats in 2009, which they won with, but then they ignored the manifesto, which made everyone resent them. Even to this day, even though they don't exist anymore, people hate the successor parties because they broke their manifesto promises. It's pretty hard to follow through, but you take Kishida, he got elected basically with no clear policies about anything. And there wasn't really any substantive debate about anything, really. People sort of resented the Democrats for forming an alliance with the communists and punished both parties for it. But that was based on the assumption that they were sort of agreeing on policies, which people sort of said, how can you vote for, an ally of the Communist Party, which still has on its books kicking out all the American bases and, getting rid of the monarchy and doing some things which the Democrats, no, we wouldn't actually agree with them on policy. We'd just team up with them for elections and sort it out later. But this is the point. Nobody actually knows what their policies are. So that's kind of a perennial problem here. Tim the Asian Ink. Magic Spoon I don't know about, but Curiosity Stream does also sponsor a lot of channels that I quite like. So yes, Curiosity Stream definitely sponsors. Nebula sponsors a lot of the channels that I like. Curiosity Stream, Squarespace, brilliant. They seem to be recurring over the channels I most enjoy. Isaac Arthur, Answers with Joe. And Anton Petrov I've really been enjoying lately. He's like awesome. I don't know. I think he's a school teacher. Like seriously, I'd love to have a school teacher like him. Just talks about awesome science news every day. 270 AJ, you're getting Robert Greene's new book, Daily Laws, tonight. Okay, books are great. 48 Laws of Power with examples from history. They help me a lot with dealing with politics at work. Wow, that sounds... Skillshare, yes, that's another excellent one, Mr. Cordychip. That's definitely another good sponsor. That's an interesting recommendation. Dealing with politics at work. I'm lucky I don't have that so bad now, but I've dealt with that in the past, and I was very, very, very bad at it. I've learned, the best strategy is to not get involved in politics at all, and to hide from it if you can. But it doesn't always work. One outcome that was particularly disappointing about the election is that before the election, the parliament had 9% women, one of the lowest in the democratic, first world. Now it's like 7.9%. The women that were there are actually fewer. And right now, after the election, and for the CDP, I think it's over here that the leader of the CDP resigned, but the whole debate to replace him. There are no women even in the running. I mean, basically the CDP, the Constitutional Democrat Party, as absent from having prominent women representatives as the LDP almost. I mean, the LDP, there are maybe women being more prominent, but they are such a tiny percentage, and they are being put into visible positions. I think partly to show that they're making an effort, but they're doing that instead of doing things like having the party lists have quotas of women and so on, things that could actually overnight improve the representation of women. The fact it's actually gone down after all of the sort of focus. Some commentary around that through the week, some pointing out that kind of the fact that this was the outcome and so many women lost seats that they were elected for kind of showed in a way that the society as a whole, remember 50% of voters are women, gender equality, while Japan is getting spanked over it, like from the United Nations and the global gender equality index and so on. And a lot of people point this out, and they point out Japan is ranked 120th in gender equality. My joking speculation that perhaps this is why the Taliban wanted to be friends with Japan. But at the same time, it seems like, and no doubt that index is used in part to pressure and to shine a light on where efforts are not being made enough. But you'd think a terrible result like that would result in domestic sort of outcry and calls to do more, and it did briefly, but really voters don't seem to aspire to have more equality, even from women. which I guess is another part of the challenge here. And, I mean, Japan has to decide itself, obviously. Some countries, like the Scandinavian countries, decided a long time ago that having a parliament that doesn't have equal representation of women to men, among representatives, that matching society as a whole is not going to, do justice by women's specific issues. And they decided to have quotas, gender quotas, a long time ago. Japan's just never gone down that route. And I think it's actually, you can blame the LDP for it, but the other parties are like this as well. And voters are voting like that, even women voters. So it looks like it's just maybe something that Japanese, women themselves don't prioritize, which is surprising, but that seems to be part of the outcome anyway. Yeah, Kang and Kodos, glad that you're here. You'll need a shower, so you'll be back soon. I actually, I don't listen to live streams in the shower, but I find it's actually I've got waterproof earbuds, and I quite like catching up on videos while I'm sort of, I don't really have a bath anymore, but it's quite nice if you're having a long shower. So, yeah, anyway, enjoy the shower. Kang and Kodos, we'll see you back soon. So that's women in politics. 270 AJ, one of the laws is never outshine your master. That's a terrible, I mean, it's probably true, but it still feels like terrible advice. If you work too hard and your boss makes you, and your boss feels you are better than them, you can get fired. Ouch. Is this advice from the book? That's terrible. I'd say you look for a better job. I'm quite happy to be outshone. I guess it depends. I mean, yeah, and I don't know. I would say is politics different in Japan? I think humans are basically the same. Even Japanese culture, stuff emerges. Different behaviors come out due to culture, but I think the underlying fundamental things are pretty much the same worldwide. We'll come to this one. Chinese state media told everybody, hey, everybody start stocking up on food. Just make sure you've got, because you'll never know when there's an emergency. And a lot of people interpreted that to mean, hey, everybody get ready for a war to invade Taiwan. Lots of sort of online speculation and stories about, Taiwan has special intelligence that the Chinese considered actually preparing to invade Taiwan and decided to hold on it till Tsai's term runs out in 2024 and invade it later if they invade it at all. Kind of scary. I mean, just the notion that, a country in this day and age feels like it can invade a $20 million population. I'm tired. Sovereign. I mean, clearly, they wouldn't feel like they have to invade it if it didn't practically exercise on a day-to-day basis independent sovereignty. And remember, Taiwan is not moving towards declaring independence or doing anything. This is just like Hong Kong. It's just a power play. It's basically Xi going a step further from first making himself effectively dictator for life. Like even under the Chinese constitution, that wasn't allowed, and he changed it to allow it. Accelerating the Hong Kong integration and the suppression of human rights there. And now the Taiwan issue, they're figuring out that, yeah, if you're actually not reasonable, you can actually get more done, maybe taking lessons from Russia. But, invading the Crimea by stealth and, taking away human rights overnight with the security law in Hong Kong, all of these things, they are significant grabs. But, the idea of invading Taiwan, that would be crazy. And Taiwan knows the risk, and it's not provoking that. And again, the kind of disturbing that I suppose the belief in U.S. deterrence is probably waning, and that's part of the problem. And I would say it's sincere, both in the sense that domestic, I don't know that Americans are as ready to go to war to defend Taiwan as they might have been, 70 years ago, or at least the government. There's been a strong, two presidents now have been, I mean, from where I'm sitting, Biden is equally as isolationist in terms of defense. He says the right things better, but essentially he still has a very strong isolationist bent, which, is fine for America. It's American lives. America doesn't owe the rest of the world its blood. But at the same time, it signals an opportunity to countries like China, and it's worrying. And same, from a Japan perspective, if China were to invade Taiwan, what position would Japan be in? And that's a really interesting one. I'd say politically and socially, Japan has excellent close ties with Taiwan. Plus, of course, the territorial claims that China has involve islands that are off Taiwan, in between Taiwan and Japan. So it puts Japan in some strategic risk as well. On the other hand, part of the justification, strategic justification for invading Taiwan from a security perspective is the idea that between the Okinawan island chain and Taiwan, from Beijing, Japan has a pretty effective ability to blockade. With Taiwan's cooperation, it could blockade China. And that in itself is a sort of Damocles hanging over China. Of course, we know here in Japan that's never going to happen. So China should just chill out and not worry about it. But of course, it's probably a situation that they want to correct. And if you combine that with some feelings of legitimate territorial claims on the Senkaku Diaotai Islands, and a general sort of not even paranoia. It's actually true that the international system, the way that borders and countries were set up in the 19th century, late 19th century, was pretty much done by European colonial powers for their own benefit at the expense of China and other countries. So you can understand China's feeling that that law and having law and order and respect for laws in the neighborhood is based on a system that was designed to undermine them. But of course, ignoring it, on the other hand, means invading countries and killing people who aren't like the British, who drew up the crappy borders. It's killing Chinese and Japanese people. So, China continues to be a worry here. I mean, just the fact that they're increasingly, seemingly prepared to do crazy stuff, unnecessary stuff, and I hope that they don't do that. This week as well, it's interesting that the Taiwanese themselves seem to be the most careful about this, but we'll have to see what happens. Back into the chat. We've got Kang and Kodos. Not necessarily, but certainly. I think the market's been flooded compared to the old days, but yes. Quinn Rankid, now is a good time. At least China might think so because of Biden's actions in Afghanistan. Well, Trump's actions in Afghanistan that Biden, followed through on. They both did it. The Democrats and Republicans right now are both equally disappointing on this. Basically, if America doesn't want to sacrifice its lives for, what it considers to be unworthy countries, that's what's gonna happen, so Atomic Tom, US-Chinese war would be really bad. Indeed it would. And interesting as well, actually one of the great documentaries I watched this week, Dark Docs, actually talked about what was it called, Operation Burnstone or something. It was, you remember around 2013 when North Korea was testing all of these missiles regularly, and the US used it as a justification for putting Aegis system, land-based and sea-based Aegis missile defense around Japan and Korea. And of course this really freaked out China, because China saw it as sort of taking the initiative to basically suppress China's own deterrence of its own nuclear weapons under the pretext of doing it to counter North Korea. There's actually a great Dark Docs documentary that this was actually part of the increasing of the Aegis facilities in the Sea of Japan. Around that time, it was not just to create a missile shield to sort of block China from being able to attack the US, but it was actually that there was a malfunctioning spy satellite that the Americans wanted to bring down and not have it like crash with all of its technology in it, where it wasn't supposed to, or where it could be recovered by an enemy power. So they actually set up the Aegis system. They said that they were carrying out tests, but they actually shot down their own missile to bring it down in a sort of a controlled way. Their own satellite, their own spy satellite, to bring it down in a controlled manner. This is in 2013. But it is interesting. I haven't seen any media that's connected America discovering recently that they believe that the Chinese have carried out dozens of tests now on hypersonic missiles that are not ballistic. They don't go in a straight line, and they don't fly at regular sort of Mach 20 sort of speeds, but hypersonic and can fly side to side under control, which means that basically missile defense systems, which are based on taking the trajectory of the missile, predicting where it's going to go and shooting and hitting in that spot, China's actually developed now missiles that can both go faster than and go in non-ballistic trajectories. They can change course and travel faster than Mark 20. And that basically can't be countered by US defenses. And this has the US, of course, freaking out now that what missile defenses it has are now rendered useless by these new missiles, which actually Russia apparently also has developed as well. It could be possible they're even sharing technology. But I found it fascinating that just in that context with America recently freaking out about Chinese hypersonic missiles, that it reminded me that, yeah, these Aegis, deployment of Aegis in the region, like in 2013, to counter North Korea really upset China at the time, and that might have sparked this whole thing, actually, to find a way around that. So, interesting times. Quinn Rankett, if there is a blockage, would South Korea help with that? You mean a blockade? So I'm not sure I get what you mean. The blockade I'm talking about is that Japan could blockade South Korea, could blockade China. Would South Korea help China, do you mean, or would South Korea help Japan blockade China? South Korea would never help Japan do anything, but it couldn't help with a blockade because, frankly, it itself faces the same problem that it has to export through Japanese territory. It has the same problem as China, I suppose. I don't think it would team up with China. North Korea would, obviously, and a united Korea would be super interesting. But no, I don't think that would be a scenario. Dan H., one of personal favorite YouTube channels, which is history, is called Web of Stories, which is a very underrated channel. Thank you again for the recommendation. You make good recommendations. I feel like I should make some recommendations of my own. So actually, I'm tempted. I might just list off some channels here in a moment. No. Biden messed up with the withdrawal, showing him. No. Well, again, we'll agree to disagree, but he just kept the schedule that Trump set with no plan. He just followed through on Trump's plan. Again, which they're both a-holes for it. The debacle was set in place by Trump. And remember, Obama campaigned that he was going to pull out of with Afghanistan, and he didn't because he realized all the problems it would cause. But then Trump just sort of, did it stupidly, and Biden followed through for pretty much the same reasons that Trump did. It was just bloody-minded in a way, but it was based on the idea that we're not going to keep sending people to die in Afghanistan when there's no clear exit or way out of it, which I think is reasonable to a point. And I didn't really fault Trump a lot for it. I mean, people voted for that, but yeah. Anyway, I'm going to finish in 10 minutes. I am going to finish in 10 minutes, believe me. The border is reopened. November 8, Japan is going to start allowing students, exchange students, short-term visa, and apparently long-term working visa people back into the country. Very happy about this. I've got co-workers that have been waiting for a year to come into the country with their families. Interesting because they have young families with kids that are not vaccinated, but apparently the story there is going to be that they are going to have to quarantine for 14 days, but they will be able to come in. The big thing is that the backlog at the moment of people waiting to get into Japan, and by the way, it's everyone except tourists, so you won't be able to come to Japan for a while as a tourist, but for people who have been waiting to come in on a student visa or a working visa, there are like 380,000 people waiting right now, and the country can only process 3,500 people per day. So you do the math, it'd be like 120 days, even if they went maximum capacity every day, it'd still take, 4 months before, at least 4 months before everybody could come in. But quietly, I've seen signs already that for a while now they've been increasing the number of people that they're letting in. And they're going to allow reduced quarantine times for people who are vaccinated with vaccines that Japan recognizes. They'll only have to do 3-day quarantines. So good signs. Anyway, of course, it could be undone if the next COVID wave is going to be terrible, but it's great news for people who really had their lives thrown into chaos, not being able to come into Japan for 18 months, up to 18 months for some people. So that's actually really, really great news. So that is a thing that is happening. A big thing on a lot of people talking about how with the election turnout, how the elderly vote. There's this image that the elderly vote for the LDP, and young people vote for liberal parties, and those hoping for a more liberal government that might toss out the LDP. You really want young people to turn out, but there are actual graphs from the last election polls showing that if you look at, this is interest in issues, but basically young people in Japan are more likely to vote for the LDP, are more likely to vote conservative than elderly are. Elderly are more likely to vote for the socialists and the communists and liberal parties, left-wing parties. than young people. So actually higher turnout in Japan, and it's not been high, would actually generally favor the LDP. There is a kind of shift over time, and it's not just in Japan, I suppose, although the Japan characteristic is that young people in Japan seem to favor stability and respecting the existing authority and seeing the opposition as people who just complain about things. And it's kind of funny. There's actually the assumption that young people are inherently more liberal is definitely not the case in Japan. I think that's part of a global trend at the moment as well. It reflects the failure of the left, frankly, to update. People who vote left are people who've been voting left, it seems, since the 1980s and 1970s. They are like the youngest. It's like the left hasn't really succeeded in attracting a lot of new young voters in Japan, and I think many other countries, since the 2000s. And that showed in the election results. And the COVID situation is very good. Immigration easing from the 8th. Mount Fuji. Final story tonight. Yes. I'll go into the comments one more time. I've got one more story, so I'm going to wrap up very soon. But back into the comments. Quinn Rankin, Biden didn't do Trump's plan. He pulled out the military before civilians against advice. I mean, it was a mess, obviously. So however it was done badly. I don't think it would have been done that differently, but that's only speculation. And I'm cynical about both parties, and I think it was a mess. Dan H, there was a weird news story about Ainsville Country Golf Club in South Korea banned people with Japanese cars from parking in the car park to honor their ancestor. Whatever gets them going. Look, Koreans, if they want to hate, they're allowed to hate. It's stupid, but they can hate. I can kind of relate to it. I mean, there are people in my own family who refuse to buy German, cars and German things all their life and so on. But the history with Korea is so messed up because there's actually a lot of intertwined there. Hey, look, no. I mean, again, if the golf club wants to have a golf club that doesn't allow any members that have Japanese cars, which I don't understand are not all that popular in Korea anyway. When you go to Korea, you can see it's all the domestic made cars anyway. That's just what they that's up to them. Although to me, of course, I'll say it seems petty and stupid, but there again, I'm not going to deny them their right to be bitter and resentful and nationalist and racist if they want to be. But it is a bit silly now, even if they feel like they've got good reasons for it. One Johnson, personal question that I don't have to answer. With illuminations coming on in Japan, how do I like to spend my Christmas in Japan? Well, it's kind of, honestly, we don't really do it. Well, you know what? Typically, so I'm still working, of course, when Christmas happens in Japan, but I do try as soon as possible most years. I try to, typically the 26th or the 27th is when I can get out of the country, and so I will fly to Australia, or my dad was in Thailand, he was in Phuket until a couple of years ago. It would be New Zealand now. I'd fly to where either my mum or my dad's house is with the family, and we'd have a delayed Christmas. We'll do like Christmas on the 28th. Not particularly, I was raised Anglican technically, but I haven't been to church since I was like 12. So I don't really consider myself, anything like, I don't take the religious aspect of it seriously at all. It's just a nice holiday. And so from that perspective, I'm totally easy with changing the date of Christmas, and that's what I do. I really do. We do nothing, I guess, in the house. The illumination thing is really about going out on dates. It doesn't really fit if you've got a kid, and we don't live anywhere near where there are illuminations. We've never done that. I don't see the point in going out in crowds. My son wouldn't dig it either. So yeah, we'll probably just get a cake or something. We've never done the Kentucky Fried Chicken. We might get they have the strawberry shortcakes, which they sell everywhere for Christmas. We might have that at home, but even that my son's not so into. So it's pretty low key at home. I'll definitely do presents. So it's like an extra birthday, I suppose. But other than that, we just wait to get out of the country as soon as we can. So last year it was even more low key. Obviously, it was just a lot of phone calls and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't really do very much. I'm pretty boring, I must admit, from that perspective. Kerberos Tenshi, I wouldn't buy German cars either. They have become mostly super expensive crap with few exceptions. Well, I mean, look, they make nice cars. and my dad drove a BMW, no problem, and I think he drives his wife has a Benz now. So yeah, nothing. I got no problem with German stuff, but it was something I remember as a kid that even in my own family there were people who took World War II history seriously enough to not just to still boycott entire countries. I think if you feel like you suffer historic wrong, go to town. I'm not going to hold it against them. Although, like I said, I think it's not very constructive. But yeah, squirrels, rabbits, squirrels. Mount Fuji. Final story. That's right. We can now go back to worrying about Mount Fuji. So we were just talking about that before. Yeah, they keep doing more scenarios. So the thing about Mount Fuji is that it erupts like clockwork, like every 250 years. Through the geologic record. The last time it erupted was, someone can get the exact date, it was around 1750. It was around 1730 or something like that. And it erupts basically every 250 years. So it's currently now around 30 years overdue. And it was actually after the Fukushima eruption, earthquake. There was a time when there was a significant large earthquake directly underneath Mount Fuji, and everybody started freaking out like, oh, did Fukushima trigger Mount Fuji back into life? And everyone was kind of looking at it nervously, and there wasn't another quake after that. But yeah, Mount Fuji, it doesn't have constant activity, but it does basically do a large eruption every 250 years. And there are lots of, obviously Japan has changed a lot since 1750. Tokyo was a large city back then, and there are detailed records about what happened, including the amount of ashfall in Tokyo. But now, of course, the simulations as to what would happen in different places, yeah, it's pretty dire for Tokyo. When people actually, you might think that 5 to 10 centimeters of ash might just be like snowfall or something like that, but no, it's actually heavy. It can actually break power lines. It can cause roofs to collapse. It becomes like cement and becomes impossible to remove if it gets mixed up with rain. And that's what Tokyo faces if Mount Fuji erupts. I mean, among every other crisis, Tokyo could be susceptible to tsunami risk. The most dangerous place in Japan from a tsunami perspective is Shimoda in Shizuoka Prefecture. It's a peninsula that sticks out from Shizuoka below Mount Fuji. But basically, if tsunamis sort of bounce up the coast from that and they run up the coast, it would basically come through the entrance of Tokyo Bay and could cause havoc inside Tokyo as well. So we have earthquake, tsunami, fire risk, not as bad as it used to be, but some neighborhoods are still basically have the traditional fire risk just because the streets are so narrow and there's so many wooden buildings. Yeah, we get tornadoes. We do get we get typhoons here regularly, and we've got a massive volcano that is likely to destroy electricity and bury the city under 10 centimeters of concrete. That's overdue. So, it pays to keep some tin goods in the house. Be ready for anything. That's part of living here again. But yeah, Quint Rankid, you heard that a German frigate is visiting Japan. Any first time for a German warship in 20 years? Any thoughts? Not really. It's good that there's cooperation. I grew up in an army family, so I think it's sort of I'm used to growing up in the in the defense sort of army-based communities where it was always like a bit of a festival when a ship would visit. I'm sure that's very much how it probably is for the for the Japanese self-defense forces, and right now it's good for diplomacy and so on. It does reek a little bit. I can see it from China's perspective, how lately Japan's been doing joint exercises with Britain and Australia and France and now Germany. And it does look a little bit like the old 19th century colonial powers pretending that, they still have any say or any right to have a say in what happens in Asia. And when they did have a right to say anything, it involves screwing China over. So I can sort of imagine the optics are not that great, but it does show solidarity among democratic countries. So I think it's a good thing. Shubis, if Mount Fuji is going to blow up, I need to start worrying about Mount Baru in your backyard. It last erupted 800 years ago. Yeah, I mean, so you're in Panama, right? I mean, Central America has some crazy. I think in Nicaragua, they've had some really crazy volcanic eruptions down there as well, right? Like that caused mud flows and stuff like that. So, yeah, definitely. I mean, all over the world, of course, it can happen anywhere. There was actually in an island in Papua New Guinea. There's an island called Bougainville, which has quite a large city actually, and there's a huge volcano right beside it that erupted about 20 years ago. And I was living in Auckland, and the newspaper had like a cartoon saying, what idiot would build a city on top of two volcanoes. Auckland, the city where I was living, is built on top of, in the city, the neighborhoods are named after the local volcano. There are 22 volcanoes in Auckland. So that was the joke. No earthquakes, just volcanic eruptions. But the other parts of the country have earthquakes and or volcanoes as well. But yeah, I don't know. Nature's crazy. Just be ready for anything. Okay, I am going to do some music. Being a surfer in Japan, it's always a nightmare of yours to be out in the ocean when there is a tsunami. And DJ Sunny Side Up, well, the Indian Ocean tsunami, the surfers were actually among the best. In some ways, you're actually best off out in the ocean. Well, I mean, you definitely want to be on the outside, I guess, but it was actually something with the Indian Ocean tsunami that a lot of people who had surfboards were the ones who were able to float over the waves, or at least and go with the flows and whatnot, using it as a flotation device. And just for the fact that in Fukushima as well, all the fishermen, when they heard that there was a tsunami coming, they race for their boats and they get in their boats and they try to get their boats as out to sea as possible. So yeah, I must admit, it'd be terrifying to be on the shore for a tsunami, but being in the water, there are worse places. But yeah, interesting one. I mean, that's I guess you don't want to be anywhere in the in the water, and you never know what you get in. There were like 30-meter tsunamis that came in after Fukushima. One Johnson, Christmas sounds good. Hope I can make it a nice break from work and make the most of it. Me too. Again, not expecting to travel this year. Hopefully I'll be able to do that next year. A bit of peace and quiet is really all that I'm looking for out of the whole deal. So yeah, especially in Japan. I mean, so Christmas doesn't exist in Japan because it's a work day, but the end of year break, I do like that. Okay, I'm gonna make a track because I haven't done that for a while. In fact, I haven't done that for so long that I even put the audio source away. In fact, now I'm suddenly worried that I might have actually even removed the setting to be able to do this. So let's turn on Calculator. Let's see, I might have to add an audio device, so apologize for technical issues in it. Oh no, there it is. Boom. Let's unmute it. So, okay, give me a sec. Put on some headphones. Boom. Boom. Okay, let's see if I can find properties. Let's see if I can get this one right. Audio capture 2. That is not, you cannot hear this, right? Okay. Let's add an audio input. Add source. New. Oh. That's not it. Device. Give me a moment. That's not it. You can't hear anything, right? These headphones are Sony, they're the WMX3s. They're not the most recent, but they are very good headphones, and I do like them. This does not have a line in. How do I do this? Come on. Just seems to not be detecting. Okay, give me a moment here. Open sound settings. Boom, let's open the sound settings. Choose my input device. Oh, I've just realized the problem with that. So that's not what I want to do. I want to do, but I do want to. Performance. Oh god, not that one. Boom, 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 boom. Properties. Let me try something. Oh, I know what might work. Okay, I know what to do. I know what to do. Boom, I add in the... there's always a way. Okay. There we go, that's it. So, I have the Korg and I have the sound. Hopefully, I'm going to start up a new track. Should I do a house beat? I don't know, I'm going to do house unless people want something else. And this is jam, 4 minutes. No problem, I can do a jam in 4 minutes. So let's do a house track. Let's make it 132 BPM. Let's make it fastish. Loop quantize, let's make it Aeolia key in G sharp just to be different. And let's make it... Okay, let's start with that. Let's put a bass line. Okay. It's a bit devoish. Let's put something. Anyway, it's a hot mess. It's a hot mess, but it's fun. Eric Bailey, it is indeed an awkward time to join, but yeah. Anyway, that's the first time I've played with this in a long time. Hope you enjoyed the show. It was late. Not a lot to talk about, but no news is kind of good news this week anyway. I will turn that down a bit. That was a hot mess, but yeah, I got to get back into making some tracks. I'm kind of missing doing that. Yes, it's the new Simon Squirrel Buttercore. Yes, it's very big in New Zealand. They're actually, I'm probably already the third biggest band in New Zealand all by myself. Have a good week, everybody. Stay safe. Great news. You can welcome. The doors should be opening again. People should be able to get back into Japan soon, which I know people have been waiting for a long time. Take good care. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter. Remember to like if you like the video, especially like if you want me to keep bringing back the music. Although better than that wasn't very good. But still, yeah, have a good week, everybody. Stay safe. Remember to like, subscribe if you haven't, and peace. Have a good one. See you later.